Okay, so my name is Andy McElroy. I'm from the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. And I would like to explain why I think resilience is really important for the private sector. Firstly, risk is becoming more complex and interconnected. So a disaster on one side of the world can affect business on the other side. So it's very important for businesses, big and for smaller and medium-sized enterprises, to think about their exposure and vulnerability to disasters, even if the disaster will not directly affect them. Another aspect of why this is a very important issue for SMEs is with climate change, disaster and climate risk is probably going to get worse. And we're seeing that in each year, economic losses from disasters are rising year on year. We had 2011 was the worst year in recorded history, particularly because of the Japan earthquake and the Thailand floods. And that was a good example of the cascading effects through the business community that a disaster can have, not only on businesses in Japan and Thailand who were directly affected, but by supply chain businesses and business components part manufacturers across the world. I think it's very important for SMEs to be better informed about the issues of disaster risk because it saves them money. It's about protecting their assets, protecting their operations, but also starting that process to think about how they can invest in a way in the future that limits their exposure and their vulnerability to hazards such as flooding, cyclones and earthquakes. It's very difficult because SMEs have a lot of issues they need to think about. They have a lot of stresses and very little capacity. And there's always the tendency to think, okay, it won't happen to us this year, and trust in luck and trust in faith, if you like. But the problem is, if and when you are hit by disaster and you're disrupted and or close, it's very, very difficult to bounce back. And we've had many examples whereby when businesses close, they often don't reopen. Or I can give the example in 1995 with the Kobe earthquake. At that stage, Kobe was the 6th busiest port in the world, very, very important to international trade. January 1995, earthquake in Kobe, the port was badly affected and business simply moved on to places like Busan in Korea. And Kobe never recovered its former preeminence. So this is an example for businesses of all sizes, but particularly to SMEs. It's best not to be disrupted or closed in the first place, because if that happens, it's very, very difficult to bounce back. I think this is an issue that SMEs will not and should not approach themselves. It's very important to have public-private partnerships, and I think the public sector has a role to create a regulatory and supportive environment so that business investment decisions are made in a more risk-informed way, and that current operations and assets are also better protected through more business continuity planning. Thank you.